Do you think other Democrats are watching their words?
I think it's certainly possible, but I'm not sure. I mean, I cannot think of or point to any individuals who have said that. I do think that there are Democratic members of Congress who are preparing for that possibility.
How do they prepare?
I think they look to the possibility of litigation. I think they're saying, do we have the best teams possible in order to carry out our work?
Some Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way?
You ever have one of those moments where you think you've seen everything, and then out of nowhere, NPR, yes, that NPR, decides to go completely off script? That's exactly what just happened. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the rising star of the Democratic Party, walked into what she probably assumed would be a soft, friendly conversation. Instead, she walked straight into a full-blown cross-examination. NPR, the same outlet that's usually gentler than a vegan latte when interviewing Democrats, suddenly decided to ask real, uncomfortable questions. And let's just say AOC did not look ready for that kind of smoke. But before we go too far, if you enjoy watching narratives get tested and media spin get shredded in real time, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment, because this one gets wild. Anyway, the interview starts out harmless enough. The host asks about Democrats feeling intimidated under Trump's administration, a classic setup for AOC to launch into her standard defending democracy from creeping fascism monologue. She dives right in. Authoritarians, kleptocracies, illusions of power, all the buzzwords you would expect. You can practically hear the dramatic soundtrack swelling in her head as she paints this picture of a nation teetering on dictatorship. But then the host does something nobody saw coming. He asks, point blank, whether Democrats themselves are the ones weaponizing the justice system. Boom. Silence for a full beat. AOC freezes. And that pause, that long, awkward pause, said more than anything she could have said out loud.
If you or your fellow Democrats are at all feeling intimidated or silenced or anything.
I'm not. I think it's important to call this administration's bluff. I think that this is what authoritarians do. I think this is what kleptocracies do. I believe that this is what corrupt administrations do. They rely on the illusion of power, on the suggestion of coercion in order to try to get people to comply in advance. And I think that one of our largest responsibilities is to not comply in advance. If they want to do these things, they can go ahead and do them and let the American people see.
Because here's the thing. This wasn't a Fox News ambush. This was NPR, AOC's supposed home turf. Yet when pressed on whether Democrats have been using courts and investigations as political tools, she fumbles hard. Her answer? Trump was found guilty in court, end of story. Except it's not that simple, is it? Critics were quick to highlight the irony. For years, Democrats have insisted they're the party of accountability. They launched investigations, impeachments, and endless hearings in the name of protecting democracy. But the moment Trump starts using those same institutions to hit back, suddenly it's authoritarianism. So which is it? Is the justice system sacred, or is it a weapon? You can't have it both ways. And this is where the hypocrisy really starts to show, because AOC tries to sound righteous, but what slips through is something else entirely. A quiet, subtle admission that maybe, just maybe, her own side set the precedent for all of this. They built the very machinery of legal confrontation that they're now terrified of. Trump didn't invent this playbook. He's just using the one they wrote. And that's what really stings.
Republican, or many perhaps, will be watching this, listening to this, and thinking, wait a minute, actually, you're the ones who are prosecuting us. You are the guys who are weaponizing the Justice Department. How would you respond to somebody who may be thinking that?
In what way? In what way? Is it is the very presence
Putting
of
Trump on trial would be their example, I suppose.
Yes, I mean, here's the deal. In the United States, there is a jury where we are judged by our peers, and he was found guilty in court on 34 felony charges. If people want to say it was weaponized, I mean, it is hard-pressed to say that there's a partisan argument.
But let's pause here for a moment, because finger-pointing is the easy part. The real question is this. If Democrats could prosecute Trump for what they said were abuses of power, why can't Trump go after the people he claims misused power against him? If one was justice and the other is tyranny, maybe the issue isn't the principle. Maybe it's simply who holds the gavel. And NPR wasn't done, not even close. They moved straight into immigration. And that's when AOC really started to wobble. The host asked, as politely as possible, whether the Democrats' stance on immigration is hurting them with working-class voters. And AOC's reaction? She actually seemed confused. What does the word problem mean? She asked. Come on. The host clarifies. Voters feel Democrats aren't serious about immigration. Straightforward question. But instead of giving a direct answer, AOC does what she always does. She blames Republicans. According to her, Democrats tried to fix immigration with a bipartisan bill, but Trump supposedly told Republicans not to cooperate.
To what extent is immigration as an issue part of your problem with working class voters?
I mean, I guess my question would be what does the word problem mean?
People voting for the other side and not for you.
Yeah.
Feeling that Democrats are not serious about the issue in ways that it concern them.
I think that we have a problem on immigration because of the lack of progress that we've had on this issue. And as we know, Republicans weaponize that lack of progress. Of course, there was famously a bipartisan bill last year that the Republican majority in the Senate and also in the House were willing to pass. President Biden was willing to work with them on it. And Donald Trump said, do not solve.
Now, even if every word of that is true, it still doesn't explain why the border spiraled into chaos while Democrats were in charge. Remember when Kamala Harris was appointed border czar? What exactly got accomplished? Absolutely nothing. In fact, border crossings surged to historic highs. Small towns were overwhelmed, and major cities like New York and Chicago started sounding the alarm. These weren't conservatives. They were blue city mayors begging for help. Yet AOC still tries framing the entire issue as everyone else's fault. It's Trump's fault. It's Republicans' fault. It's America's lack of comprehensive immigration reform. But here's where her argument collapses. While she's talking about pathways to citizenship, the host cuts in with a dose of reality. He reminds her that the Trump administration, flaws and all, actually took concrete steps to secure the border. And you can practically see AOC blink, almost in disbelief, like she's wondering whether she's still sitting in an NPR studio or if she's somehow teleported into a conservative talk radio interview.
It is a problem not just for Democrats. It's a problem for the entire country that Republicans do not want to solve any sort of issue with immigration. They are completely uninterested in addressing undocumented people, in addressing a path to citizenship.
Well, they do want to address undocumented people by removing them. I mean, that's what the president is attempting.
And honestly, credit to the host. He wasn't wrong. Whether you love Trump or hate him, he treated border security like a real priority. He didn't just speak in platitudes. He built physical barriers, tightened enforcement, and used the laws already on the books. Meanwhile, Democrats seem far more interested in signaling virtue than solving anything. Then comes the best part. The host asks why immigration keeps becoming a political liability for Democrats if their policies are supposedly so compassionate and effective. And AOC's answer? She claims there is no clear path to citizenship. That's where my jaw hit the floor.
This issue did seem to be a political loser for Democrats among key groups and key constituencies, if what you say is true.
I think that a lack of a path to citizenship in the United States, the lack of addressing comprehensive immigration reform creates a large population of undocumented people in the United States. And that is allowed to be weaponized in many ways. We have a large population of undocumented people in the United States. Overwhelmingly, it is not because they crossed the southern border of the United States. It's because they came here in a documented fashion and overstayed a visa and became undocumented. And it is the lack of ability for us to expand paths to citizenship, modernize paths to citizenship over decades that create this.
No path? Really? Tell that to the millions of immigrants who became U.S. citizens through the system already in place. Arnold Schwarzenegger, who arrived with little more than brute strength and ambition, did it. Ilhan Omar, who arrived as a refugee, did it too, and now sits in Congress right next to AOC. So when AOC insists there's no path, it doesn't sound like policy critique, it sounds like denial. Sure, the system isn't perfect. It needs reform. But pretending it doesn't exist at all, that's where credibility evaporates. Viewers aren't stupid. They can see right through that kind of spin. They know the problem isn't the lack of a pathway, it's the lack of enforcement and the lack of respect for the system already in place. And that's where Democrats keep tripping over their own messaging. As the interview continues, AOC tries pivoting again, accusing Republicans of weaponizing immigration as a wedge issue. But the truth is, immigration became a wedge issue because people are fed up. Americans in border states, swing states, and even deep blue cities are feeling the consequences firsthand. Rising housing costs, overburdened social services, and communities stretched to the breaking point. You can call that political if you want, but for countless Americans, it's not politics, it's personal.
Are allowed to weaponize.
And you have voters in places like Arizona, which is a swing state that Democrats lost, or Colorado, which is generally a blue state, saying there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of lawlessness.
Yes.
I don't know what to do here. Who's looking out after me?
And I think when that is paired with divestment from the social safety net, when that is paired with lack of progress on minimum wage, when that is paired with rising costs of living, it sets the stage for a strong man to point to any marginalized group and say it's their